Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live event, A World in Balance, Why Sustainability Ambition is Not Translating into Action. I'm Liz Lunier, Director of Analyst Relations and host of Capgemini's Future Sight podcast. I'm thrilled you have joined us. On the 10th of November, Capgemini Research Institute launched our first annual Global Sustainability Report, exploring companies' progress towards environmental sustainability and looking at how it can be accelerated. It also provides actionable recommendations that will enable leaders to quicken the pace of their company's sustainability transformation. This research is not to be used just once. It is meant to be an anchor point for Capgemini clients, partners to reference throughout the year, to help you translate ambition into action, to foster a culture that celebrates and promotes change across the organization. We do want this session to be interactive, and we'll have a Q&A at the end. Feel free to post your questions in the chat here as we go along. What's more, we are excited that today that we are also launching an exclusive executive digest today, which highlights the findings for the research. The link will be shared with all of you towards the end of this event. Now, let's dive into the research. Today, I have with me Marissa Slatter, Director of the Capgemini Research Institute, who led the research, our EVP of Group Sustainability and of Benjamin Alu, and the VP of Sustainability Solutions of Capgemini Invent, Courtney Holm. To begin, Benjamin, would you like to say a few words about the report?
Of course, and thank you, Liz. And if I would have to just keep 4 highlights that will be highly discussed, I would say, during this discussion today, I would keep those ones. The first one is that first highlight from the report is that, organizations across industries have acknowledged the urgency of climate change, but with long-term targets. And still, there are limited on-ground actions and short-term commitments. The second one is that our research reveals that many executives are still unclear as to the business case for sustainability, and still view it as an unwelcome cost driver rather than a needed investment. Third one is that there are pockets of tangible progress. Some organizations are starting to invest in technologies such as artificial intelligence, automation, Internet of Things that may help to limit environmental impacts. And last, the recommendations for 8 C-suite positions to accelerate their company's sustainability ambitions can be found within the report.
Thank you, Benjamin. Now let's dive into the findings of the report itself. Marissa, can you take us through the key findings of the research, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Benjamin. If we can go to the next slide, please. And the next slide. This global research, the next slide, please, surveyed over 2,000 executives at 668 organizations with at least 1 billion in revenue across 12 countries and 11 sectors. We had representatives from corporate functions, 50% of our respondents, from functions such as strategy, sales and marketing, finance and accounting. And then we also had executives from value chain functions. So executives working in R&D, sourcing and procurement, manufacturing, for example. And our overall objective was to map the current environmental sustainability landscape across the market and explore where organizations are in their transformations towards sustainability. And some of our research questions included, do companies take the sustainability mandate seriously? Are they aligning their organization around sustainability goals and objectives? Where do companies stand in incorporating sustainable practices and processes into their corporate functions, into their value chains? And then also, what do executives view as the most disruptive sustainability trend and technology for their industry in the coming years? On the next slide, we see that organizations, as Benjamin said earlier, they do recognize the sustainability imperative. Sustainability is now a corporate imperative across sectors. Our research revealed that over half, 64% of respondents say that sustainability is on the agenda of each C-suite executive. And however, there appears to be a gap between ambition and this large share of companies that say it's at the top of their leadership's agenda and action. On the next slide, we see that one of the themes we explore is indeed this, that ambitions are not translating to actions on sustainability. And we explored why organizations are falling short on action across these 5 key themes: sustainability strategy and business models, sustainable products and services, sustainable operations, sustainable IT, as well as data for sustainability. And in the report, we explore all of these topics in depth. On the next slide, we see that although most companies include sustainability as a top agenda item for leadership, this again is not necessarily translating into action. For example, many organizations are failing to define clearly and prioritize sufficiently their sustainability initiatives in the short term. Only 49% say they have a priority list of sustainability initiatives to implement in the next 3 years. There's certainly a lot of traction around longer term net zero commitments, but we do see that they're failing to define clearly those shorter term initiatives. On the next slide, while many companies are strategizing for greater sustainability, redesign of operating model lags. So only about 1/3, 37% of our respondents say that their company is redesigning their business or operating model to be more sustainable. And operating model redesign is truly required for companies to become sustainable businesses in the longer term. And the failure to redesign into more sustainable practices could have consequences for the relevance of the company in the longer term. On the next slide, another key theme that we explore in the research is that organizations are viewing sustainability as a cost driver and not an investment. So many businesses are failing to commit fully to the sustainability strategies they have laid out for fear of cost implications. So in our research, only 1 in 5 or 21% of executives agreed that the business case for sustainability is clear. And this was consistent even among those executives working within sustainability functions, where it was only marginally higher at 23% of sustainability executives saying that the business case is clear. And so this could illustrate a lack of transversal collaboration and coordination when it comes to sustainability. And they're not thinking about sustainability as a long-term investment. On the next slide, we see that over half, 53% of respondents in our survey believe that the cost of pursuing sustainability initiatives outweighs potential benefits. So this is suggesting that organizations might see sustainability initiatives as obligatory or unprofitable. And in addition, the same percentage, 53%, also say that sustainability initiatives are a financial burden we have to bear in order to do business. So many are failing to view it as a chance to influence real change while safeguarding their bottom lines. On the next slide, we see in our research, we mapped the sustainability maturity of the 668 organizations in our survey across 3 different dimensions. Our framework here is shown on the slide. We have value chain processes. So we assessed sustainability initiatives and activities across the value chain, including initiatives within the sourcing function, R&D, manufacturing, etc. We also looked at sustainability enablers. So these are the dimensions that relates to organizations getting their people to buy into their visions, buy into a culture of sustainability, and supported by corporate functions such as IT and finance. And then lastly, we have a dimension on tech accelerators. So this is the adoption of digital technologies and other pathways that help in accelerating the sustainability transformation. And based on these building blocks, we identified 3 cohorts of organizations based on their sustainability maturity: beginners, experimenters, and front runners who have better progression along each of these dimensions. And so we analyze the financials of these organizations to better understand whether sustainability can equate to a financial advantage. On the next slide, we see that our research did find that sustainability can be financially beneficial. Contrary to some common industry beliefs, many companies are already reaping the benefits of adopting sustainable practices. So within our survey, 21% of our organizations are considered front runners per our sustainability maturity framework. And they're working towards reaching the sustainability objectives by ensuring progress along those 3 building blocks I displayed earlier. And it's important to note they're not completely sustainable yet, but they're progressing better than the rest of the companies we surveyed. And so these front runners are outperforming the rest of the organizations on revenue per employee, as well as net profit margin. They enjoyed an 83% higher than average revenue per employee and a 9% higher than average net profit margin. And this analysis does not imply that sustainability directly leads to profitability, but rather it highlights that sustainability need not be a financial drain, and that organizations can be both financially ahead and be sustainable at the same time. On the next slide, we see that another key theme in our research was about people and culture, and how people and culture challenges can limit enterprise-wide collaboration and adoption. So 41% of organizations in our survey say that upskilling and reskilling on hard sustainability skills is a priority. So, while organizations should strive to instill a sustainability mindset in employees, they also need to recruit and train employees with hard sustainability skills such as carbon accounting, environmental science, renewable energy, or data analysis and visualization. And on the next slide, we do see tangible progress. A 4th key theme is that organizations are investing in technologies to limit environmental impact. Organizations are deploying AI and automation. Nearly 60%, 58% are using AI and automation to achieve their sustainability agenda. And then lastly, we wrap up our report with how can organizations accelerate towards sustainability. And we go into depth in the report on recommendations for how 8 C-suite positions can accelerate their sustainability transformation. And this requires enterprise-level coordination, involvement from functional leaders, and also a redesign of the operating model and business processes to allow sustainability to permeate the organization and not just sit at top-level strategy. And also, it's important that it becomes a boardroom priority, and disruptive and consequential decisions that must be taken by the board. And we provide detailed recommendations for how top leadership, again, can accelerate their ambitions towards sustainability.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Marissa, for this. Those are some very powerful insights and levers of action. So now, Courtney, what are your views on this report? You've been in the sustainability practitioner for what, over 20 years now? What are your initial views of this research?
Yeah, let's not age me too much, but yeah. Yeah, it's been a long career, but you know what? I think first and foremost, I was so pleased to see the report get responses across the key industries that are responsible for the majority of our global environmental impacts, right? I mean, so we have some really heavy hitting organizations and such a breadth across the key industries and sectors. First and foremost, Marissa, I think the report really showcased the strength of our CRI research capability, and the methodology revealed a few very critical insights from my perspective. Number one, it's clear that too many companies still haven't invested in operationalizing sustainability. They put the effort into developing their strategies to say 2030, so that more long-term view, but they haven't started to take short-term actions to deliver the change, and it's clear. The second thing is that leaders emerge from the survey. We saw that, that in the stats that you've just shared, and it's easy to tell which organizations have the maturity within their organizational design to drive impact in the near term. And I think what's important for us to understand as well is how are they structuring their CapEx and their OpEx in order to drive that change in the near term? Because our financial business modeling isn't all that equipped to deal with some of these discussions. I'm really hopeful that the Executive Digest that we'll be releasing today will complement the report. It's comprehensive, but we need something that's more easily consumable and to provide a handy tool for future reference. So I imagine people, I love a laminator. I imagine people printing it out and laminating it and keeping it on their desks so that they can refer to it. I think it's going to highlight the key findings in a very visual way.
Oh, well, thank you, Courtney. That sounds absolutely awesome. Benjamin, do research findings here resonate with what you're hearing from the clients that you're interacting with?
Yes, of course. What Marissa and Courtney just shared is absolutely in line with what we experience on the field while supporting our clients on their sustainability agenda, as many of them still stand at the initial stages of their sustainability roadmaps. And even if most of them have begun considering the sustainability aspects, which is a strong basis for progress. However, there needs to be an urgency to convert this agenda into a tangible results, short-term tangible results. And it is true as well that we see many organizations still struggling with finding the right approach to sustainability. But we know it will probably change quickly. It's sad, but it will change at least due to regulation changes across countries. For instance, in Europe, I think that no later than the beginning of 2025, there will be a lot of expectations coming from the companies. And when we talk about global companies, 2025, it's tomorrow. So really, it's all about tangible, quick results. And of course, it's perfectly illustrated with what we do on the market. At the same time, we can help Gazag, an energy supplier, define its neutrality carbon roadmap for 2045. But at the same time, we also work on this famous farm projects that you can find on our website, which is an AI-powered platform to help resolve global food shortages. Just to name a few, but we are also working on those two aspects, long-term and short-term.
That's fabulous at working at both the long-term and the short-term, Benjamin. And it's great to hear what you had to say about those kind of impacts. Marissa, based on your research, what kind of questions should we be asking ourselves, and what should we really focus on?
Yes, I think first it's great to acknowledge that this is the first broad multi-sector research that we've done, covering multiple angles and themes within environmental sustainability. And so I think what's very, very exciting, particularly for me as a researcher, is that to see how these trends and data evolves year on year, because we will be taking this as an annual series. So we'll see where things mature and where there's additional progress in the market, which is very exciting. We also, there are some sectorial and geographical differences, which show some variability there, which I know we'll get into a little more in this conversation. And the function angle, there's some functions which have limited knowledge of sustainability, while others don't. So I think that is, how can organizations better evangelize the sustainability message, ensure all their teams and functions across the organization understand the broader goal and how they can contribute to that agenda is key. And so, it's both a mindset shift and as well as a culture change that's required.
So I'm hearing, Marissa, that you said that, this is the first of its kind, so it's really going to progress as far as the data is concerned, and that there are very different results from a sectorial and a geographical perspective. And last but not least, I'm hearing you say that these functions have different knowledge of the topics, but particularly like the CSO does, but, maybe not the CFO as much. So it'll be interesting to see how that progresses in the future, and there's a lot of great recommendations that they can take forward in this report. So let's talk about that geographical perspective. Courtney, do you see anything different about what's happening in the US and in Europe and the best actions that you would want to take in each of those kind of geographies?
Yeah, so the sustainability topic is somewhat more advanced in Europe. I think that's helped because we have some stronger regulatory incentives. In North America, sustainability strategies are not implemented across the board when it comes to organizations, but we do see that those companies who do have strategies in place are yielding impressive results. They're moving quickly. I think overall, among the countries we've surveyed, there's not a large variation across the different geographies in the percentage of total revenue allocated to sustainability investments. I think that everyone's spending about the same amount of cash, which is clear it's probably not enough, to be quite honest with you, especially as Benjamin was mentioning as well. What we see on the ground is that businesses have a strategy, they have some work that they're doing, they're smaller projects, but they're not allocating an enormous amount of OPEX or CAPEX to sustainability just yet. Maybe if we start to see the CFO and the chief operational officer start to play more of a role into those organizational strategies, then that will change. And I'm hoping that shift will come. I think organizations who consider sustainability to become an obligation, fail to realize that sustainability is fast becoming a license to operate. We know that governments across the world have regulations that call for reduced emissions and are enforcing stricter regulations every year. I can't imagine we'll see a reduction of that anytime soon. What's clear to me, though, and just over the years, what I've acknowledged and inside of the organizations I've worked for and with, is that most organizations that understand that sustainability is an investment opportunity and that capital flow is a measure of progress towards the future are the ones who are leading and winning in this game. So I'm hoping that we'll see more capital flow go towards programs around sustainable development.
Well, that's encouraging. I hope that happens too. So thank you, Courtney, for highlighting this. And I'm sure that there are also industry differences. Benjamin, can you tell us about some of the industry-specific trends that you were seeing and, more importantly, act on? You're on mute, Benjamin.
Your mic is on mute. I never heard that before.
Never
So
probably
Liz, of
did.
course, if you go through this fine research conducted by our research institutes, you will find that the first key finding is that, and outstanding point is that there is no bad student. And that's remarkable at this point. Sustainability is everywhere. Instead, what we are witnessing is a varied array of situations between organizations and sectors alike. If we dwell a little deeper, we can still find interesting insights that could give a sense of sectoral differences. For one, sustainability being on the C-suite agenda is highest, for example, in utilities, in aerospace and defense, and in telecommunications. And lowest, which is a surprise, in industrial manufacturing. And it's still not worthy. And there also appears to be a gap between ambition and action. And for the large share of companies that say sustainability is on their agenda. And this gap can be found everywhere.
All right. Well, that's a very interesting view, Benjamin. Everybody has expressed a very interesting view, so thank you all. We've talked about the current state of affairs, but how do we see these findings evolve in the future? Let's start with you, Courtney.
The future. It's funny. I think that what we're going to start to see is that the tunnel vision that we have around carbon will start to ease. I think that there's a lot happening in Montreal this week and next week around biodiversity, and I think that'll be the tip of the iceberg. The reality is that we need to get organizations to have better knowledge across the board. Upskilling, educating, skilled recruitment as well is something that I think that organizations are struggling with. People need to unlearn how they do their jobs in the past and relearn how they need to do their jobs differently in the future. And I'm hoping that KPIs, operational KPIs, will help drive that difference.
Excellent. What about you, Marissa?
Yes, for me,
Marissa,
I think, can you hear me? There's a need for better roadmaps, which starts with better measurement in order to define actions. And so it starts with considering evolving metrics for the business case, how to establish sustainability reporting and prepare for evolving requirements. So really optimizing measurements as a starting point in order to build better roadmaps.
Great. What about you, Benjamin?
I would say the need for better governance within organizations and across the board. When you take the decision at the group level to change just a raw material for sustainability aspects, just to change the nature of a metal or whatever, the impacts on the whole value chain is enormous. So it's not just only sustainability roadmaps, and succeeding in achieving a sustainability roadmap is not just only about the decision of a board level, not only about local initiative led by passionate individuals about sustainability. That's really about the fact that we should embed sustainability in every layer of an organization, because for the first time it will have to be managed at the scale of the whole company. And that's the main difference between the sustainability revolution, data revolution, and digital revolution that we lived before.
Very profound, Benjamin. Thank you, everyone. Courtney, how do you see the report findings resonating with our clients and supporting their business?
I always say that companies really care about two things: what their competitors are doing and what their customers want. And we know from previous CRI research that consumer demand is evolving, and we now can share what's happening around sustainability and how it's progressing on the market. So I think the evidence is quite clear. I think now what we need to do is help businesses drive this change inside their organizations. And I think it's a great way for us to highlight the need for sustainability roadmaps and governance to counter the current lack of progress. I agree with Marissa that roadmaps are going to become really important, and they can't be too far out. They have to be really closely tied to the current year and the next year's fiscal plans. And then I think as well, what we're starting to do quite a lot of now, and where we want to help clients, is that there's proof that there's a correlation between sustainability and profitability. And again, there's proof in the research that we've conducted. So I think we've given them everything they need. Now they just need to act.
That's encouraging. Thank you, Courtney. Let's start with Marissa. Can you all tell the audience what they can do immediately using this research in the Executive Digest?
Sure. First, I would highly encourage the audience to read the full report and also consume the Executive Digest and share it with your teams and even use the research for internal training and upskilling. That is an area, a key challenge for many organizations. And so anything that you can do to prioritize the sustainability message and train your teams would be beneficial to implementing action.
Excellent. What about you, Benjamin? How can we use these resources?
Simply as first, integrating all the relevant insights that you may find into this document to help you in building sustainability related business case for your business project, as it is key to help your organization move on that topic. And the second one, this research will greatly help you to invest in the right technology to help you deliver those short-term objectives, short-term products, short-term projects to achieve tangible results in the next months.
All right. What about you, Courtney?
You know what? I think it's really important that we talk about the results. There's still a lot of socialization that needs to happen about what's done around here, and we need to change the way that businesses think about how they run their organizations. But the results, they're surprising, and they can be used to socialize what I believe is the most important topic of conversation that we could possibly give our attention and our time to, which is decarbonizing the economy. So as an individual, share the insights with your thoughts in your network and with your colleagues. Post it up on LinkedIn. Use it. It's gold dust.
Yeah, I agree. The Executive Digest is very immersive. With a quick glance, that digest really gives you key insights from the report. It's a great asset with content that can be, consumed easily for drawing out your plans towards a sustainable future and for a sustainable business as well. So now it's time to open up the questions from the audience. Do we have any questions in the audience? I'm sure that you're all not shy. So while we're waiting for some questions, if we could see where the Executive Digest is, perhaps if you guys could put that up on the screen, because I know that we've been talking about it. It would be great to see the Executive Digest and the link to the Executive Digest, please. Oh, before that, I have some questions. Yay. So let's start with Marissa. Were there any findings in this report that surprised you, negatively or positively?
Yes. I think the biggest surprise for me was that only about a quarter of respondents in our survey said that the sustainability business case was clear. And so that is surprising to me, given how much emphasis the organizations have had on sustainability and all the net zero goals that are out there. So I think there's of course work to be done on making sure that business case is clear across functions, across the entire organization, because we did have in our sample we had representatives from all functions.
All right. Well, okay, Benjamin, how should companies go about operationalizing sustainability into their organizations, and what are some of the ways to put those strategies into place?
Yeah, I think we talked about that a little bit earlier. The first step is to make sure that the whole company is upgraded on sustainability, which comes through an aspect that Courtney talked before, which is about upskilling people and making sure that everyone within the company is aware about the stake for its companies, for himself, and for the planet. The second step, so we talked about that, but it's a company-wide topic, and rapidly the sustainability roadmap should be shared with the whole companies below the board level. There are some objectives to make sure that a company is becoming carbon neutral and then net zero, and the most important part is net zero, of course. It has huge impacts everywhere into the company. So really the second step is to make sure that all the middle management is put around the table with the board level to make sure that those objectives are well understood by everyone, and the consequences of delivering those objectives are also well known. That's for me the first biggest steps.
That's great, Benjamin. Thank you for that. So Courtney, we've got the next one for you. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for Capgemini North America after Executive Order 14082, the recent legislation, which includes the key energy and infrastructure provisions, including the renewables?
It's a tough question. I haven't lived in the US in a long time, people.
I know. Neither have I, but we still sound American. So go ahead.
Right, the accent. I'll do my best. I think so. If I can take an example of what I've seen when the UK launched the TCFD and how businesses responded quite quickly was to get a plan together. Like you need to start to organize yourselves, and you need to not write KPIs for KPI's sake. The KPIs have to ladder up to the type of operations that you have, the type of data you have available, and they have to also go back to why your company exists in the first place. They have to ladder up to your purpose. So compliance can't just be about generating a report. It can't. Otherwise, it's a fruitless exercise that wastes energy and valuable resources. For me, and what I speak to clients about is that I don't want you to spend a fortune on reporting. I want you to spend as little as possible on reporting so that you can spend your money on doing things that are actually going to drive change and decarbonize your operations, and to give you something fantastic to talk about in your report and not just numbers. I think the evidence behind the progress is something that we will see gaining on grounds of expectation. We saw it from COP26 to COP27. The expectation for businesses were to come and sharing stories. Story doing is what we need to focus on now. So for me, it's get your house in order, understand what you're accountable for from a reporting perspective. But as you're building out your strategy and how you're going to get there, don't report for reporting's sake. Report to drive change.
Report to drive change. I really like that one. All right. Next question is for Marissa. Would it make sense to investigate other aspects of sustainability beyond the environment, such as the full ESG scope in this kind of research?
Definitely. Short answer, absolutely. I mean, the full ESG considerations, governance, as well as social aspects to sustainability are, something top of mind to many organizations today. Many, have aligned goals and strategies to, for example, the UN Sustainable Development Goals and other measures. It's all so very critical to a sustainability strategy for sure. Under governance, we touched on the topic in the current report, but there could certainly be a deeper dive into it. Many organizations have set up sustainability task force or have designated a C-suite role for risk accountability, or of course, we see chief sustainability officers at many companies today. But looking at governance and operating models across specific sectors would be a very interesting topic. And then when it comes to social aspects, of course, that would be also very important. Especially when it comes to measuring impact measurement of social and environmental together. That is something that we're likely going to be looking at in 2023 in our research agenda.
So I hear that you're looking at environmental and social impact in the 2023 research agenda, which is great. And I look forward to seeing how that progresses. So Benjamin, are you hopeful about the sustainability trends based on this report? And if so, or if not, why is that?
There is hope, and there must be hope. we will all succeed if we draw targets that people want to reach. And we must have hope, and we must stop being pessimistic about what is happening, talk more about all the positive things that are happening. Of course, it won't be easy, but yes, I am. And we should all be in that set points. And in the coming years, I see sustainability becoming by design, through regulations, of course, to start with within certain part of the world, but also through the big push that is being made by the young generations, through also business, because when we will start to understand that we can generate real benefits, not through destroying the earth, but through the regeneration of the earth, we will start to see that we can make business, we can make profit out of sustainability. This will become also another driver. Also, of course, I won't forget all the potential crisis within which that we are living today, the one we will have in the future. This will have an impact, but I really have the feeling, seeing this report, that the foundations are here, and sustainability will be embedded by design in every product, every services, everything we do in the future. I'm optimistic.
Can I just add to that? I mean, Benjamin, it's so important that we stay positive. So I've been doing this, it's been almost 26 years, right, that I've been geeking out on sustainability. The last 2 years have been the most exciting in my career. Finally, people want to talk about the issue that I've been, pushing and talking about for so many years. And I think the momentum that we've seen over the past, especially, I don't know, maybe since COP26, I think, the momentum we've seen since COP26 has just been phenomenal. I'm really excited for what's next. And I think the conversations in the next 2 weeks around biodiversity are really going to add another dimension to the dialogue that we've had about building accountability and thinking about all the wonderful business that we have to build on top of fueling sustainability.
Well, Courtney, I think that's actually a really good topic. So let's go a little bit deeper into that. What can clients do today for biodiversity right now that demonstrates the commitment to the planet while their plans are being developed and brought to action?
Do you want me to start on that one?
Yeah. Courtney.
So it's interesting. I mean, when we're reading the press last night after the initial kind of first couple sessions, I think the UN is clear about what the challenge is. We have those 5 key topics that we have to address. I think for me, land use change is the biggest. We have to prevent deforestation from happening because we know the biodiversity is so rich in those areas that are actively being deforested now. We have so much more life to preserve. At the same time, I think businesses can start to look at their value chains and start to understand where their business operations impact deforestation activities. A lot of businesses already do this, but they have to do it at a different scale now and with different consideration, with different KPIs. Secondly, I think that there's a whole nother issue around water and aquatic management and aquatic ecosystems that has, largely been ignored. I was referring back to an old case study around the work that was done in Lake Navasha years ago when it was just really in trouble because of the flower industry in Kenya. And there's some wonderful case studies around cross and multilateral, cross-sector and multilateral collaborations in communities where there's problematic ecosystems. So I think it's a little bit more incremental. We have to go after the systems change, but we also need to start specializing in areas that are critical and doing deep dives into specific ecosystems that need to be rebounded. One of the nice things that I read about in The Guardian, there was an article last night around the California condor. In the late 80s, it was completely extinct in the wild. Now there's 532 condors. Fantastic. And they're breeding in the wild as well. So we're seeing a species come back from extinction with support. So I think that we can have a positive impact, and I think that businesses can support that as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we brought up
Lisa.
biodiversity too. I think it's really important to talk about because so many people just get so tunnel vision on carbon that they forget that there's a lot of other things outside of carbon that we should definitely be talking about. And speaking of, carbon and things like that, the next one is for Benjamin. What would be your recommendations for going further in terms steps for organizations, not just on the client facing side and the internal side, but what about for the employer brand and employee perspective?
We should give we discussed that a lot before. On the internal side, which should give the possibility to every employer to be part of the transformation of its company. First, this will improve its commitment toward the company. And second, it will help him feel like he's also part of the solution. That's for me, and it comes. We said it. It comes through upskilling. It comes through awareness. But every employee within the company will be part of the solution, that's when we realize that, and that's why we make every one of them a part of this solution. That we improve everything, the results, but also the brand image of the company.
Got it. So, Marissa, earlier we talked about that you did see some differences across, geographies and sectors. Are there going to be any research topics that are you going to be diving deeper into any of those trends within those sectors or geographies? You're on mute.
Sorry for that. Yes, you're right. There are certainly some differences that we found in our research, and there is certainly scope for more detailed sector dives into sustainability. We are actually currently setting our research agenda for 2023, and sustainability will be a big topic, and biodiversity as well, as Courtney was talking to a few moments ago, is another big topic for us, as well as measurement. So there could be scope again for more detailed sector pieces on sustainability for sure.
Excellent. Benjamin, do we have any roadmap or framework to support the UN SDGs, the 17 SDGs that the UN has outlined that people can work with, or are we working with internally?
Yes, it's being worked on. Of course, we have some documentations already that we will be ready to share, but it is still a work on which we put a lot of efforts. And we will be able to disclose news, very exciting news in the coming weeks on that point.
Liz, if I could add, I just, we do have a wealth of sustainability research that we've already done as well on specific sectors. So just wanted to highlight that. Automotive, we've done work on sustainability in automotive that you can gain access to the report and the research. We've done pieces on sustainable design across sectors. So that's another big area, as well as food waste, relevant for retailers, for grocers, and of course our data for net zero, which also is a multi-sector piece.
I think as well, just to add to that too, we have such a rich set of skills within our communities as well. And the way that we organize ourselves is via sectors and capability teams. So what we see is working quite well in the UK is we have sustainability experts, and then those experts work alongside the sector expertise. And the result is that we get a refreshed view, and we learn from each other every day. It's quite exciting space to be in, actually. So we're able to bring a cross-sector view with sustainability-led expertise on top of it for clients. And I think the clients are really finding it refreshing change.
That's great. Well, Courtney, let's talk a little bit about the, you say that you see this change right now. How can companies integrate emissions data into their decision making so that they can optimize their carbon as well as price?
It's a really good thing. I think that I'm a big fan of decision support modules, and they don't have to be fancy. They can just be dashboards, right? But you start to think about KPIs and then giving people the right data and information at their fingertips, so that as they're doing their jobs, they can build that decision making into how that they just do everyday work. So, for example, what we've seen that works really well too is making it internally competitive a little bit. So how can you encourage factory managers to make their operations more efficient from a carbon perspective or from electricity efficiency perspective, is to gamify it, and maybe also you could think about adding rewards and punishments. Carbon pricing, internal carbon pricing works quite well. We're starting to pilot some ideas around travel. So, because travel is one of our biggest inputs. So, how do we gamify travel and maybe have a bit of a platform in which to do that? So, I think there's a lot of innovation, and technology can support some of that work.
Excellent. So, another question that we have is that somebody actually is very excited that we take a positive take on the whole issue. And you said that the front runners were also the most efficient, profitable companies. Why are other companies not doing the same? Is it for lack of data or governance or sustainability or all of those? What do you think, Benjamin?
I would say that this one could be more for Marissa,
Okay.
as she was. I have my own idea, but I will first let Marissa answer this one. Thanks to
Perfect.
the content of the report.
Right. I mean, in the research, I think we found evidence for all aspects you mentioned. Certainly, data is very important, and as we consistent with our data for net zero research, it is still a big challenge for many companies. Knowing, especially when it comes to scope 3 emissions. It's a very complex process, and that is still a big challenge. Also, the research found culture and mindset continues to be a challenge at many organizations. So, and that is often the most difficult thing to change within an organization. That our culture research has found that time and time again. So I think just having all employees on board at all levels with the goals for their sustainability initiatives, and really and having them understand how they can contribute to those overarching goals. I think that can hinder progress in many organizations, and something that came out of the research.
And I would add to that also that this observation comes from a reality, a fact, that is the most wealthy companies have the capacities to invest into sustainability. As we saw it before, the sustainability business case is not yet here for many companies. They don't understand what is the business case for that. So that's the reason why we see the most wealthy of them invest and engage into those roadmaps with clear short-term actions. And for the rest of them, yes, there's a lack of all those things, but there's above all a lack of clear commitments into the needed investments for obvious reasons.
Excellent.
Can I add one thing to that? I think that some organizations are afraid. Like it's unknown, right? You have to take a risk. And taking a big leap forward, especially with some of the big systemic issues like driving a circular economy, for example, it's not just a little bit of cash squirreled away. It's a big shift. So I think that it's a little bit about fear too, fear of the unknown.
Got it. All right. Well, Courtney, last one for you. How do you see these trends evolving in the next 5, 10, 20 years?
it'll be business as usual soon. It has to be. It'll be business as usual soon. It'll be business as usual soon. So we have 5 years, right, to get organizations on board, to shift the dynamics, for businesses to really think about why they exist in the first place and what value they bring to society, and how they're being more positive, net positive. Steal something from my old CEO. I think that's where we need to get to, and I do believe that businesses who aren't on board won't exist in a short amount of time.
Well, thank you all very much. Is there any last thoughts that you want to leave us with, Benjamin, before I close the session?
But let's.
Any hope for the future? Any positive note to inspire?
Hope is here. We solved the ozone layer issue a long time ago. Humanity will be able to solve this one. Let's draw a desirable future for everyone with not too many constraints. And let's start. It's time to start. It's time to start.
It's time to start. And now it's time to take action. And I think that that's the whole genesis of this report that we have, is that, it's not just about business as usual. We all have to start and take action. We can't just make promises. So thank you all for taking the time to attend this LinkedIn Live event. We hope it was useful in your understanding of the global sustainability trends. I'd love to give a big thank you to our expert speakers, Benjamin, Courtney, and Marissa, for joining us today. You can find the link to the Sustainability Trends report that we talked about in the Executive Digest. I think we've been displaying it during some of the Q&A, and that they will be putting it up on the slides here at the end. And we will also be sending you the relevant information after the event. So thank you very much. We enjoyed having you today.